are these people?
You know, both of you went to the anti-war Rage Against the War rally in DC, I do believe.
Yes.
Oh, you were there too?
Yeah,
was.
I actually saw you, and I really wanted to talk to you then, but you were busy as hell. So I was like,
Oh.
so
But
yeah, I did see you there.
A particular news person, if I don't even really want to call them a person, news lizard person maybe, but Rachel Maddow had some interesting words to say about it, and we'll let her speak for like 40 seconds.
And the American connections to these politics, they can be hard to follow. For example, this weekend, there was a random, and I mean truly random, rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
Like someone threw some dice and went, okay, we're going to do it.
Rally in support of Russia, I guess, given all the Russian flags, at least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country. This was a tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there. There were some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago. Also represented prominently the remains of the bizarre Lyndon La Rouche cult.
The Lyndon La Rouche cult, Rachel Maddow would like to say. But which is the first time I've heard of it being called a cult. Interesting use of words there.
Actually, it's not the first time I heard of it called as such. I've definitely heard on Twitter. So Jose, we're glad you're here. So, I'll go ahead, Reef.
So I just wanted to bring the definition of a cult. Make sure we had that on tap. You know, religious.
Wait, I'll be right back. Hold on. I'm not running from the cult question. I'm just making sure my cat doesn't eat the cleaner stuff.
The human sacrifice. It's okay. So a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object, the cult of Saint Olaf, for instance, or a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister, or a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing, of cult or personality surrounding the leaders, quote unquote. This is from Oxford, I do believe. So, I wanted to look into some of this, right? Just to get a feel for it, right?
Oh, I love that video.
Right? I'm sure you will have words about it. So this is Vice. Take that what you will. HBO, this is completely fair use. Want to make sure I reiterate that beforehand.
We'll be commenting on it, so it is fair use.
It's got tickers over it. Artistically different, distinctly legally different now. But just talks about Lyndon La Rouche, who they claim right off the bat is a felon, quote, conspiracist.
He technically is a felon.
Sure. They made him one. They control who those are. And conspiracist.
So is Dr. King and Malcolm X.
Right. Yeah. Conspiracist is a word they made up too. We know this. They invented the use of this. So I'll let them continue.
Rumors began swirling last night that American agitator Lyndon La Rouche had passed away at age 96. That it was a rumor was fitting.
Now, every time we make fun of a politician after a death, all these same people are like, how dare you? You know, yet it's literally...
Because since the 1960s, La Rouche has been a pioneer of the conspiracy theory. La Rouche, whose political following bordered on a cult, ran for president 8 times, in between which he served prison time on federal mail fraud charges. His campaigns never had a shot at legitimacy.
Mondale is not simply a KGB agent in the ordinary sense, of course. Mondale is jointly owned by the left wing of the Socialist International and the grain cartel interests.
But they did cement La Rouche's role as the
They should have kept playing that clip. It's funny because he says something like if they told him to mop the floor with his tongue, he would.
right?
Something like that about Mondale. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
This
continue.
is Al Franken. Al
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Franken, who the Democrats had to throw away. Al Franken.
Right.
Definition of the lunatic fringe in American politics.
Bush, a former member of the Satanic Trilateral Commission, is a known co-conspirator of the homosexual child molester Henry Kissinger.
It's hard to
Not
pin
wrong.
down exactly what La Rouche believed, but it seemed to boil
it?
down to the idea of an all-consuming imperialist conspiracy led by the British Crown. According to La Rouche's sprawling theory, the Queen is bent on reducing the global population. As part of that dark plot, she orchestrated 9/11 through her Saudi proxies. La Rouche never managed to have an impact on American policy.
No,
But his
except you've made a 3-minute and 8-second fucking video, Vice. Jesus
Also,
Christ.
that's not true. If you look up the Reagan Strategic Defense Initiative, now dubbed the Star Wars speech,
Mhm.
that was written by Lynn.
Also, literally, the WEF has now taken the mantle of what he said the Queen was doing. So the Rothschilds are close enough. They got their own palaces. Like, he's in the
Yeah, yeah,
ballpark. Like,
Legacy lives on in the generation of semi-messianic conspiracy theorists who seem to have fashioned themselves in his image.
Hey, if we could just
Right.
get the green movement and the unions and the social justice people together, we could control the world.
People
yes, actually. In fact, Glenn, what is this?
wonder how someone like Alex
God, it's
Jones
Alex
can get
Jones.
away with saying that Sandy Hook never happened.
They had the
New
kids
World
going in
Order.
circles in and out of the building as
In
a
and out of the
photo
building.
op.
But it was La Rouche who proved that if you're emphatic enough, often enough, someone will start to believe you. La Rouche made his 2004 campaign his last. But lately his name has started to filter back into the news. The Steele dossier suggested that the Kremlin invited a La Rouche
Which we know was false.
You know, it was false. Yeah.
delegation to Moscow to enlist its help in spreading misinformation in 2016. And La Rouche himself had a friend in Trump world.
I am very familiar with the extraordinary and prophetic thinking.
Do you remember how Roger Stone did Julian Assange and Randy Credico? Is anyone remember that? That didn't
No,
actually
I
happen.
didn't know that.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Did he really?
I might be thinking of someone else.
I think
I know Roger's in favor of Julian Assange getting out. I think I spoke to him about that
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, he was an advisor. Like,
Lyndon La Rouche.
The La Rouche movement is now railing against impeaching Trump, in part because of a common enemy. Robert Mueller, the man going after the president, is the same Robert Mueller who, as a young federal prosecutor, put Lyndon La Rouche in prison, under orders from the Queen, of course.
From Bush, but yeah.
same difference.
Yeah,
Like-
well, I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. That because what they did to character assassinate Lynn, I call him Lynn just because it's easier that way when we
Sure.
refer to him. Lyndon La Rouche gets kind of long and overdone, but imagine if look at how they sorry about that. You
You're
can still
good.
hear me, right? You can still
Yes,
okay,
sir.
yeah. So imagine how if that Rage Against the War Machine protest happened in the mid 80s, right? And then let's say they threw the organizers in jail, and the only thing the mainstream American news media watchers knew was that mad out coverage, right? Not only that, but you put out all these articles saying that, the organizers of the Rage Against the War Machine were all right-wing Nazi fascists who were working with a cult leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no Twitter at the time for you to defend yourself, right? So, and the only thing you have to rely on is your own publications. That's basically what happened to Lyndon La Rouche. See, Lynn in '86, his party won some primaries in around the country, and then all of a sudden next year he's in jail. And they didn't get him on mail fraud; they get him on conspiracy to commit mail fraud. So it's not we got you committing murder; it's we got you on your intention to commit murder. That's what conspiracy to means, right? So. and they can make that up on anyone. And here's the thing, right? That trial had to be redone, I think, 3 times or 2 times because they both went to mistrial. The first time it went to mistrial was because they got the judge to agree to open up a safe by George H. Bush, which contained a letter in it that straight up said, oh, yeah, no, we're going to go after Lyndon La Rouche and try and get him in jail. And after that happened, all of a sudden, there was a mistrial declared. Then it happened again. And the jury said if there wasn't a mistrial, we would have voted for not guilty for Lyndon La Rouche, right? Then the third time, it had to go into this place called Virginia called the Rocket Docket, where the judge basically just says this or this. And the judge was totally bought for, and so they put Lyndon La Rouche in jail for like about 5 years.
You mean our justice system is rigged? You mean?
God. But not only that, they put my friend too. His name is Mike Billington. There we go. Mike Billington got 78 years. Okay. This is a non-violent offense, conspiracy to commit mail fraud, right? He got 78 years. Now, thankfully, he only served 5 of those years, and then he was let out on, I think, parole. But who the hell, right? No matter what you think about whatever these people, right? Who the hell gets 78 years on a non-violent crime, right? And it wasn't even on anything crazy, right? Like, why the hell would anybody ever get a sentence that big? And so, that's basically what happened to Lyndon La Rouche. He was character assassinated. There was no Twitter at the time. There was no way for us to really, contradict the lies other than our own publications. But then people aren't going to read the publications because, oh no, those are the weird cult people because the people on the news said they were. So, but yeah, that's basically why Lynn got character assassinated, because he was actually going to shape policy in the United States.
You might recognize this video.
Oh yeah.
On TikTok. Figured I'd bring this with us as well. The guy doing the voiceover though, it's just wow, like but anyway, we'll let this roll.
The greatest witch hunt in American history you never heard of. This is the Lyndon La Rouche trials. By the mid-1980s, La Rouche had seriously shocked the political establishment. He had thousands of candidates running for every level of public office. He was publishing the second largest subscription science magazine known as Fusion, and had many world leaders working personally with him to push for a new international financial system based on physical economic development. These included notably India's Indira Gandhi and Mexico's President Jose Lopez Portillo. La Rouche served as a back-channel negotiator to the Soviet Union for the Reagan administration, in a position of influence that set the stage for Reagan's 1983 offer to the Soviet Union of a policy based on La Rouche's proposal, the Strategic Defense Initiative. The SDI announcement would have fundamentally eliminated the threat of thermonuclear war by jointly developing defensive systems with the Soviets. La Rouche's enemies never forgave him for this, starting with a 400-agent federal raid on La Rouche's house and political offices in 1986. Attempting to kill La Rouche in the process, his publications were bankrupted and political operations ordered to cease. Robert Mueller, one of the lead attorneys in the case against La Rouche, had to abandon the initial case in Boston when it began to fall apart. A new case was quickly moved through trial in Alexandria, Virginia, where the whole process would become much more friendly. La Rouche was railroaded into prison on fraudulent charges, where he would spend 5 years, and brown-nosing journalists were brought out to slander him with every nonsensical attack imaginable. According to Ramsey Clark, who was the former Attorney General under Lyndon B. Johnson's administration, would term the La Rouche case as a broader range of deliberate and systematic misconduct and abuse of power over a longer period of time in an effort to destroy a political movement and leader than any other federal prosecution in my time or to my knowledge. The case was brought before the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, the Organization of American States, and the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. Literally thousands of parliamentarians and other elected officials joined with religious leaders, artists, scientists, and human rights figures from across the globe to demand an end to La Rouche's unjust incarceration. Hundreds traveled in delegations to Washington, D.C. to lobby for La Rouche's freedom. Today, his wife, Helga Zepp La Rouche, is calling for the United States to ally with the great powers of the world, including Russia, China, and India, on a global commitment to end poverty.
Great stuff. Yeah, so cult, I hear.
Yes.
I heard no talks about his favorite ritual sacrifices. No specific candles to burn. So thoughts, Jose?
I can send you guys, like, there are FBI memos. There's a letter from Henry Kissinger to the FBI, which says, like, hey, we have to deal with this Lyndon La Rouche problem because he's like being a pain up my butt. And
that's still happening to leaders that are talking about the same thing. Omali Yeshitela is getting attacked and investigated for similar thinking. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And like the Uhuru group, I know they were raided by the FBI.
Yeah,
that's
right.
him.
You know, so it's a badge of honor. And like, I mean, when I first came around the organization, I was maybe like 15 or 16 or so, and like I was also kind of freaked out because like what I was reading online about these people was not matching up with my experience at all. Right. And so, it took me a long time to even call myself a member. Right. And like to be a member, there's no like, some organizations like Communist Party of USA, you have to pay your dues and stuff. And that's just, no, you just hang around. You just come around, or you get on the Zoom meetings. Maybe you ask a question on the Saturday town halls, which is the other thing, by the way, for a cult, like we're very public with what we do. Like we have the Schiller Institute YouTube channel. We have the La Rouche Organization YouTube channel. Everything we do is public. We have a Saturday show. We have every day, one of our members, Harley Schlangers, he posts an update. It's like what happened in the world. Like that's why I listen to his updates, so I know what's what in the world. With the Nord Stream pipeline, the Ukraine war, right? So every day we have an update going out. And we also have like our own news service that we've been doing since the '80s called the Daily Alert, right? And I mean, and so it took me like maybe like 3-4 years till I was very comfortable with saying like, oh yeah, no, I'm a member with the Lyndon La Rouche organization. Like I understand the stigma that comes with it. I understand, but honestly, like I don't care. Like I feel like I'm in the cool kids club now because 50 years from now he's going to be vindicated. Maybe even sooner he's going to be vindicated. Like the Chinese have adopted his policy. Like it's not incorrect. It's not controversial for me to say that the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative was big influenced by Lyndon La Rouche's policies. In '78, we put out this pamphlet called How the International Development Bank Will Work. And then in 2013, I think we put out the Silk Road pamphlet, right, which is what then Xi Jinping came out and said, we're going to do the new Belt and Road Initiative. And then we put out the new Silk Road becomes the World Land Bridge Project. And then they call his wife, Helga Zepp La Rouche, the Silk Road Lady, because they know that like she is like one of the originators of what, of the BRICS, of what, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa Pact is doing right now,
right.
This idea of mutually beneficial cooperation. So I think what makes us so dangerous is that not only do we know what's wrong, I think a lot of people, a lot of organizations know what's wrong. We actually had solutions. And we had an idea of what to replace it with, right? Because it's one thing to get the cancer out of your government, but then what do you replace it with? Because just because you get cancer out of an individual, it doesn't guarantee their survival. You have to, make sure the guy eats. You have to make sure the guy can live and, has housing, right? That's ultimately the same principle for a society too, right? Just because a swimmer gets rescued who was about to drown in the middle of the ocean, yeah, you rescued him, but that doesn't guarantee his survival for the next 50 years of his life, right? Like, so that's what our society is like today. We have to make sure we can build the things like infrastructure. We have to make sure that our kids can get educated, and we can make sure that we have the right culture and policies in place so that our society can thrive and survive, not just for the next 50 years, but for the next 500 years.
Well, what I say, just for marketing's sake, right? It's real in right now. I say you lean into the cult thing. You guys get cool robes, right?
We should get some merch, right? Robes with his picture on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like with the rope belt, like, because that's chic.
Oh, I should. I went to the Renaissance Fair last year, and like I dressed up as a scribe or a monk, like an old century monk.
Yeah, go for the old school cultist black robe, masks. You gotta have a mask. They might let you like use the space at Bohemian Grove if you ask them nicely.
Oh, you mean the real cultists? Yeah.
Yes, the and the Skull and Bones Club might show up. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
if we're gonna call people cultists, might invite all the cults. You know, Scientology can come over. You know, it'll be fun. Like Tom Cruise is a real entertaining guy. I don't know if you guys know this, but
we should get him.
Oh, that's gonna be, people are gonna be so upset about that.